Hello, good to see you all. Look at all of you. I love that so many of you are on video. Oh, so good to see you. Hi, Deborah. Oh my gosh, so great, so great. Wonderful. Well, here we go. My goodness, this is a nice, big, vibrant, full class. I'm so happy to be with you. Let me get a couple little technology pieces happening here. Here we go. And love, I just want to get some of the places where we're calling in from. This is really wonderful. By the way, I'm Lisa Schrader, and here you are in our masterclass, Finding Your Center in the Midst of Change, using the wisdom of Shakti. I'm just so looking forward to sharing this next hour or so with you. Let's say 75 minutes. I promise we'll be wrapped up by then. And we've got over 1,000 women registered in this master class, which is just so wonderful. I know some of you came from my dear colleagues, Liana Silver or Devora Bree or Shamali Arda or Elaine Dowdy. So welcome if we haven't met. I'm so glad that you're here. And then I know there are many of you who've been in my circles for a long time, or maybe just recently discovered this Awakening Shakti work. So just a super warm welcome to all of you. We've got women here, oh my goodness, so many from Long Beach, Colorado, from Germany. I know it's late for you. Australia, I know it's the crack of dawn for you. Thank you for being here. Norway, Denmark, Alberta, oh, so wonderful. Yeah, I love the ability to connect like this. It's such a miracle, isn't it, with our technology, that we can be connected like this all around the world. I'm taking a big breath because, as you may have noted from some of my emails recently, we've been in a massive blackout situation here in Northern California, and I still do not have power in my home. I think we're on day 3 now. So yeah, we're going to be eating a lot of things out of that freezer. That's what I'm thinking. So wow, has Goddess been giving me a real life opportunity to find my center in the midst of change and a fair amount of chaos. So I am hooked up here online. Obviously, I'm going to just say a little prayer that we stay connected. If I somehow disappear, hang in there. I will be back. But I am an hour and a half away down in Sacramento, where we have a little pocket here of people who haven't been affected by the blackout. So I am hopeful and grateful that so much excellent material has been available to help me just really get anchored into my own Shakti practices, so that I can feel like I'm really, really freshly standing in my teachings to offer what I have to offer for you today. So again, thank you so much for being here. I know there are many, many, many of you who are picking up the replay at a later moment because this time frame doesn't work for you. And so I really want to say I'm so glad that you're here and that we are all in this ultimate perfect moment of presence together. And what a blessing that is. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to have a sip of tea. I hope you'll join me. I'm going to, of course, give you what I promised you, right? Some not just information, but some opportunity to practice and actually have, hopefully, some brief experiences of you really tapping into your own Shakti wisdom as one of, if not the best resource that I think we all have in these times of great and increasingly unprecedented, right, levels of change that we're dealing with. So we will be talking a little bit about that, obviously, in just the context of the moment that we're in. And then I'm going to invite you to come closer. I just want to be really transparent with you. I have a 6-week Sacred Feminine Activation online program that's going to be starting in 2 weeks. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that because I feel like this is kind of step 1 into really getting anchored into what I'm going to share with you are really the 3 core aspects of these Awakening Shakti teachings. And I'm going to give you an this real strong invitation that if this is resonating for you, if this feels really alive for you, and you feel like this is the beginning and you really want to go deeper, that you come and join me in that class. So I'll tell you more about that as well. And so, just to set some context for us in the moment that we're in, I want to acknowledge that we're just here on the eve of a full moon. No accident, I planned it that way. So, we have this big, beautiful moon that's called the Hunter's Moon. This is from our beloved Native Americans here in the northern America that named these moons. And so this hunter moon was the moon that happened after the harvest moon, right? So we're gathering our stores for the coming cold season, right? For the coming winter. And now that, the leaves are off of the trees, there's a big bright moon for hunting by, right? To take that, obviously go out and gather the resources that we need for the winter. So we're just going to kind of hold that context, even for our Southern Hemisphere sisters. As many of you know, I'm married to my beloved Australian husband. And so I'm very connected to my sisters down there in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, not just in Australia, but all of you. And so you're stepping into spring. So I'm just going to invite you to reframe our context of harvest and autumn into your own season, of course. But here we are in this moment. And so astrologically, and I want to confess I am not an astrologer, but I find it fascinating, and I find it always to be a relevant model for us to consider. And so this full moon that's coming, and that is on Sunday, is an Aries moon. And so there's a lot of intensity, right, with this moon. So I'm so grateful that we are gathering together today to just do some practice and inquiry around, how do we stay centered? Because we have so many things that are pulling on us right now, right? And then here we have a full moon, right, which is an amplifier, right? Helps us to see. And in particular, from the little bit of reading that I've done about this moon, there's a lot happening here around intensity in terms of our relationships, right? The places where we feel sticky or stuck. And this moon is really giving us, I think, a kind of a kick in the butt, and also a lot of illumination around those patterns that are not serving us right now. So what could that look like for you? It might look like that, things are getting intensified, the stickiness or the unhealthy or unconscious patterns that are active for you in whatever relationship you might be thinking of right now. They might really kind of come to a head, if you will. And that's such an opportunity, right? So what also is here in this moon is a lot of auspicious and positive energy for us to go ahead, take that big breath, really give ourselves some time to connect with our own truth about what's going on, and hopefully maybe even use some of these things we're talking about today as a way to embrace the change that wants to be born, right? That wants to liberate you. There's a baby in here somewhere, something beautiful wanting to be born, wanting to have life, right? And so when we can surrender, work with all that comes up for us around change, and actually give ourselves over to that, then that's when this breakthrough is possible for us, right? So astrologically, that's a little bit of what's going on. And that might actually be your relationship with your own self, right? With your own sacred feminine or your own Shakti. So let's hold that in our context too. We've got a couple of days here where that energy is really building, culminating on Sunday, and then a couple more days after where we're going to have this big, beautiful hunter's moon. I'm thinking of like Artemis with her arrow, right? With her bow and arrow. Like, what are you aiming for? Is it out that you're maybe hunting in that archetype of the feminine? That it's time to really find that, like hit your mark, hit your target, whatever that might be for you. So I want to offer that, right, for us to just ground into the moment that we're in together. Right. So let's just talk a little bit about the level of change that is happening right now, right? Just as a little bit of a context for us. And at least for the women that are here with me live on this call, and there's so many of you, my goodness, I'm just so delighted. Yeah, we've just about maxed out the line. Oh my goodness. So if you're joining us late, we might run out of room for you, but hopefully not. And what a joy. Thank you. So what I have for you is a little poll, those of you that are here live. And here it is. So if you're willing to play and just give your vote here, the question that I'm putting to our circle of women who are here live and co-creating the moment is to rate the level of change that you're personally dealing with right now on a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, with 1 being very little change, all the way up to 5 more than ever. All right, just so we can have a little bit of a read on where are you at. And for those of you that are listening to the recording or not participating live right now in the poll, I just want you, all of us, to just take a breath and just feel into this question, right? Not only is there a phenomenal amount of change that we are all as a human species coping with right now, but there's all of the things that are happening personally in your own life, right? So before we get into this conversation, just a really important pause right here, just to check in with what's your truth about this? You know, be honest with yourself. How are you doing with this level of change? And where are you with that right now? Right? And lots of breath, some deep breaths, and maybe even some gentle holding of the soft animal body that is you. Like, oh, sweetheart, yeah, it's a lot. If it's a lot, and just letting yourself feel into your own heart and your own body, right? And a little less in the head and just more in the body. Always a good way to begin. So I'm inviting you into that. So here's where the women who chose to respond landed in this little poll. Wow. Oh, beloveds. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So 42% of you indicated that you're at a 5, right? Kind of an all-time high, right? So almost half of our circle. And then another 32% of you, a close second, said number 4, quite a lot of change that you're dealing with. And then we had 22% indicate they were a 3 on the scale of 1 to 5, 7% a 2 on the scale, and 1% of you said very little. All right. Thank you so much for participating. What kind of phenomenal numbers those are. And I'll go ahead and share the results there. Yeah, so that you can all see those of you that are here. All right. So, wow, a lot. Here's a statistic for you, just so that you know you're not crazy, right? Because sometimes it can feel like, wow, I just need to get my shit together. Like, what's the problem? Well, the problem really is that we don't have a precedent for this, for the level of change that we're undergoing right now, right? It truly is speeding up. It truly is getting more intense, right? Here's a statistic from Digital Times. By 1950, human knowledge doubled every 25 years. Okay, 1950 doubled every 25 years, human knowledge. In the year 2000, human knowledge was doubling every year. And now, today, it is doubling almost every day. Almost every day. Right? And we can feel that, like just the bombardment of information. Now, you could also argue what a good thing that we're getting more knowledgeable, right? Because there are a lot of solutions. There's a lot of creative thinking happening right now. And I absolutely celebrate that, of course. And when I read this quote for myself, I think I wrote this to you in an email. You might have already heard me say this. But I thought to myself, wow, isn't it interesting that we have a doubling of human knowledge that's happening daily, and yet there's so little wisdom. Yeah, it seems like, why aren't things improving then? Why aren't we solving some of these huge problems like climate change and the massive amount of inequality that we have economically, right? And more equality for women, right? More protection of our children, on and on and on, right? It doesn't often feel like our knowledge is translating into wisdom. So I wanted to share that with you because here I've called you to a class about finding your center in the midst of change using the wisdom of Shakti. So I'm going to be sharing to you what that word means to me, Shakti wisdom, and what I know about the Shakti wisdom teachings based on my own practice, my own study from the ancient lineage of Tantra, which is really where I first found this word Shakti, which is really another word for power. And it is feminine in nature. It's the goddess Shakti in union with the masculine principle of Shiva, that in the tantric cosmology created all of life itself. So what we're really tapping into when we say Shakti is the power of creation, right? And for me and what I have to offer you, that is inherently feminine, and it is part of our genius as women. So part of the solution that I have to offer you is really about this deeper connection with your own sacred feminine. I believe that is where the keys are, right? And maybe can help us make some distinctions between what knowledge is and what true wisdom is, right? So we've got all these things happening on the global sphere, this rate of change. And then I want to also acknowledge we've got so many changes happening in our own bodies, right? Our feminine bodies are masters and gurus, our ultimate guru of change, right? That we, of course, we know change is what is true. Everything in life is changing. And even though we can intellectually understand that, our egoic mind has very deep structures for resisting change because it's frightening to us, because we can't control it, because we don't know what's coming. It's unpredictable. And given that we're living in such a volatile and uncertain and complex and ambiguous world, you might have heard this acronym VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We're already in that world. We can get very activated, right, around how frightening change is. And the thing that we want to remember is that our bodies cycle with the moon, right? Our bodies fill up every month and then they empty, right? And then we go through this midlife moment of change, our midlife rebirthing of perimenopause and menopause. Then we have a different relationship with change, but we're all dealing with the change of aging, right? And some of us in our elder period of time are really confronting that. And then you might be more in your fertile time of your life, right? What I often think of as the mother archetype. So you might be actually having babies or raising children or in the process of launching your children out into the world. You might be also being an auntie, right? And in your mother archetype, you're also developing your career, right? You're really finding who you are as a professional woman and what gives your life meaning and how you're going to contribute your gifts to the world. These are all times in our life where we are mothering something, meaning we're growing it, we're helping it rise up out of the ground, like we're gardening that, right? So we're in different life cycles, we're in different processes with change, and then we are also dealing with the changes in our personal lives. For example, changing relationships. Yeah, how many of you are in a process where you're really in a shift of a relationship? Maybe you just fell in love and it's a brand new relationship and it's something that you're growing, right? And mothering in that way, something brand new and fresh. It could be that you are in the process of letting something go, right? Either through death or through just natural dissolution of a relationship. And those are really, really big changes for us to navigate as well. You might be in the process of supporting aging parents, as they're dealing with change, big change, right, happening at end of life, right, as we step through towards the ultimate change, which is the surrendering of this physical form, right? Just think about it for a minute, that we have always been in change. I'm just going to invite you to take a breath and just look back on your life, dear sister, of all the changes that you've moved through, because it's never been constant. And maybe as you do a little retrospective of your life from when you were a child and when you moved into your teen years and your 20s, your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, and just look at all the major changes that you have navigated. And you've navigated those in your body, and you will continue to up until you come to that place where you actually take your last breath and you have one of the ultimate changes where we move back to light, into spirit. At least that's my belief. So we're going to be drawing on that wisdom too, your inherent knowing, particularly because you're a woman, of how to navigate change. So I want to just share with you a little bit about my own journey around change. And I had a lot of it growing up. All right. I went to, my gosh, I had to add it up, 8 different schools from the time I entered school in grade school to the time I got to UCLA, where I got my university degree. I was in 8 different schools, and we moved 6 different times. And so I had a great deal of love for my parents, and yet a great deal of there was a great deal of chaos in the family, particularly between them. Right. So my way of coping with that was to grab a hold of change. Thank goodness I was rather an extrovert, and I kind of threw myself into each new school and each new experience. And frankly, kind of overrode my emotional needs, I think, as a child. I just went into achieving. I can do this. I can handle this. And also because of the dysfunction in my family, I was adulting very early, right? I became overly responsible and graduated early and got my degree and had a high-tech marketing career, and pretty much thought that I could deal with the chaos in life by being really responsible and being super organized and being a leader and kind of whipping everybody else into shape so that things could be controllable. Well, I'm sure know how that story ends. There was eventually a lot of tension in my marriage. And I had a couple of miscarriages after the birth of my daughter that were completely devastating to me. Were the beginning of me realizing that I don't care how perfectly I do it and how hard I work, and that I was the perfect pregnant lady. I did it all right. I didn't have control over whether or not those babies were going to stay. Yeah. And I still grieve them. And eventually there were mounting tensions in my marriage. I was very shut down sexually. I was trying again to control our sex life, and we had a lot of disconnect. My husband, we're dear good friends. We had a lot of disconnect there. And so we discovered Tantra. That was the great gift of that. But then in our sexual exploration, we also went through a lot of open relating towards the end of our marriage. Eventually, he chose to leave the marriage, which was completely shocking to me. And we ended up losing our dream house eventually. And I really went through some significant dark times in my life. And it was through these experiences that I really was forced to look for these inner resources. This is where I really discovered these ancient practices of Tantra, and finding particularly this inner marriage inside, right? Especially when the outer marriage that I thought would be there forever fell apart. right? And that feeling of my self-esteem being gutted, right? It's very challenging to be out in the world as a teacher of intimacy and sexuality and have your beloved husband say to you suddenly one day with no warning, I'm leaving and I'm leaving with another woman. So it really ultimately was a gift, as traumatic as it was for me to find my own center around what my Shakti is, right? My own power, my own attractiveness, my own joy for life, my own erotic connection that wasn't dependent on an outside relationship. And I am happy to tell you that as a result of exactly these practices, and I would say spending a lot of money on coaches and therapy and workshops and all of those things that I did, I've really distilled that. And that's what I have to offer you, not just here today, but also in my upcoming Sacred Feminine Activation course. I've distilled it for you into models with very specific ways for us to connect with this sense of inner power. And I'm just so delighted to tell you that I am absolutely in the relationship of my dreams now. Michael, my beloved, and I got married last year, and I am postmenopausal now. That was quite a journey. And honestly, having the absolute most erotic, orgasmic, beautiful sex of my entire life. I would not trade the place that I'm in right now, not even for a minute of the sex that I had in my 20s or my 30s. What is happening for me as a postmenopausal woman who is connected to her Shakti is nothing short of phenomenal. And I'm so excited to share some of those pieces with you. I have an incredible relationship with my daughter. My husband is one of our very best friends. I have deep roots in my community. After all that tumult and change, I really grounded myself in my community. I've been here 26 years, and I absolutely love living in the Sierra foothills of Northern California, even when they turn my power off. And I get to do work like this, right? And I feel incredibly abundant and wealthy with love and prosperity and connection to people and nature and my clients. I love that I have a thriving business and I get to do work like this and touch you. So that is all just to say that I do know how intense some of those life cycle radical changes can be. And I really want you to know that there are so many resources for you here inside of these teachings and what I have to offer you and coach you with. I'm also a certified professional coach with the International Coach Federation. So I'm really well trained to not give you so much the answers, although it might feel a little bit more like a consulting thing I'm doing today and teaching because I'm standing in that role. But really my come from as a coach is that you are whole, complete, and resourceful. So everything that I have to offer you is really about pointing you to what you know. So I hope that you will really take what's here today as we continue to move more deeply into this, into your own inquiry. What is my truth about that? What is she pointing to me that is actually resonant inside of me? Because ultimately, what this is about is loving fiercely, working with our heart. It's really a key. And to embracing pleasure, which is really about embracing our body, our sexuality, and our sensuality as the sustainable life force energy and fuel to support us with all that we're here to do and give in the world, right? One of our greatest resources. And also to be divinely aligned, right? Which is really about tapping into the guidance of your own wisdom, your own soul, your own spirit, your own knowing of yourself is sacred. So that's really what we're up to today. All right, my dears, let's jump into that. So I want to show you this, this little trigram that I just mentioned. Not that one. Sorry. This one. Here we go. Yeah, bear with me. I'm a solo act today. So I got to navigate our technology. So can you guys all see this? Give me a nod. Yeah. All right. So this is really the core of the teaching. So it's what I just spoke to, but I think it's helpful to have a visual, right? So we've got the heart loving fiercely, the soul being divinely aligned, and the body embracing pleasure. And it's these three aspects together that really activate our Shakti. I think Shakti lives in the middle of that. All right. So that's what we're going to really play with today. So let's start a little bit with being divinely aligned. All right. Being divinely aligned. And really, the inquiry for you here is what are your best resources here? So if you have a journal and or you'd like to put it in the chat, I'd love to see you in the chat too. What are some of your best resources when it comes to really staying connected to who you are as a soul, or your connection to the divine, right? Your soul being, at least how I think of it, as your aspect, your ray of the sun that is spirit, right? That lives uniquely in you. Because here's the thing, we know that change is the only constant. We know this. It doesn't make it any easier, right? But it's really when we're in a feeling of overwhelm from the change, it really depends where we're at. Now, given that 42% of you are sort of in maximum levels of change, sometimes you just need to figure out what base level coping you need, right? So for me, that often looks like really basic things, like taking a nap or having an orgasm or getting some water or getting quiet, right? Or getting into nature, right? But what I want to offer you here around staying connected to your soul self is really the distinction between that and your monkey mind or your thoughts. Because another model for you that many of you hear me speak about is actually called the quaternity. And so if we think about a circle that's like a compass with the 4 points, like with the 4 directions, the circle that we are, the wholeness, if you will, that we are, is actually made up of the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, and water, right? Or you could think of the 4 directions. And here we are in the center of that. But the element of the air is very much associated with the mind, right? And so the mind can swirl, right? We know this, into all kinds of thoughts about the way things should be and that they shouldn't be this way. So this is a place where we can get very out of balance. And so this trigram that I just showed you with the body, the heart, and the soul is really an antidote to the overactivity that most of us experience on the planet right now of the mind, of that element of the air, which literally is just like so much swirling air. It just makes you feel crazy, right? So it needs to be balanced. So we're really looking at how do we bring more of the heart, the body, and the soul, more of the element of the water and the fire and the earth into balance so that we have a circle that's actually working. So around dealing with that more mental aspect of us, and from a place of context, from standing back in our soul self, we really want to look at the stories that we're saying to ourselves about the change, right? Byron Katie, beloved Byron Katie, says, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Oh my gosh, I love that quote so much, right? When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. So very often when we're in a lot of stress about change, it's because we're arguing with reality. And we're always going to lose when we do that. So, noting when you're resisting or you're pushing against it, and if that's a place where you're just overly absorbed in the mental, you can also pause there and actually tell yourself some other stories, right? Because a lot of the times when we are in that resistance or arguing with reality about the change that we're dealing with, it's because we're projecting into the future about the possibly horrible, horrific, apocalyptic things that are probably going to happen, right? We're worrying about that. Or we're going back into the past where we're grabbing examples of times we've been traumatized or upset, and we're reinforcing those because we're projecting those into the future. So this piece around being aligned, divinely aligned, is really our practices of meditation, right? We might call it meditation. Now, what I want to say about meditation is that most of the meditation practices that have been handed down to us over the years were developed by men for men. So I really want to leave you with this inquiry of what is the meditation practice for you that feels really aligned with who you are as a woman right now. That could be a very sitting still, eyes closed, more traditional meditation practices. Those can be absolutely beautiful and very useful. I use them a lot. And it might also be, especially if you have some resistance to that form of meditation, that you need a moving meditation, that you need a meditation that uses your body. Maybe that's dance or walking on the earth or being in nature, right? And maybe it's activating your voice because you're somebody who likes to chant or sing or tone or right? Maybe it's simply eyes open meditation where you're focusing on a candle flame, or you're really working with a more active breath meditation. There's so many different ways, but the key here is to one of our ultimate resources, particularly when things are swirling around in the mind, is to remember that observer place, right? That place where we are witnessing that we are a human being having a human experience, having thoughts coming and going, coming and going. We don't need to fight them, that's useless. But that's not who we are. And that when the thoughts grab us and yank us and take us into scary scenarios, that we can actually bring ourselves back to that observing place. So let's just take a moment to do a little practice right there. So I want to invite you to place a hand on your heart. I'd love you to get connected to your heartbeat. And so just practicing right now, you know how to do this. And let us just, oh, I can feel just the field of us present, even though we're not in the same room, I can feel you. And we know that's rippling out to all of you that are joining us in the ever present moment. Right? So just taking some deep breaths and really feeling your own heart beating. And notice that you are your heartbeat. Even though you might feel like you're observing it, it is actually you. You might find your pulse maybe here in your artery in your neck too. And take some deep breaths into your own pulsing presence of your heartbeat. And remember, maybe say to yourself that all is well, because actually, in this moment, that is the truth. You're here listening to me, we're being together. And no matter what is swirling around in your life right now, in this moment, of hopefully increasing presence and connection to your own heart, you're simply here. And this is actually what abides. Everything changes and will continue to. But what abides is you, dear sister, and your presence. And when you are here in this place in you, and I am in this place in me, we are one. Even when we're not here, we're one. But yeah, we are one. I'm working with Tosha Silver's Full Abundance Change Me prayer right now. And at the end of that, it says, you are me, and I am you, and we are one, and all is well. And so, whatever meditation practice this it is for you, connected to staying with your breath and entering into presence, this is one of the greatest resources that we have. And we need to stay in communities to support each other to remember this, because this really brings us fully into that quaternity where the water of us, our heart, it's the heart, and our body and our breath and the fire of our spirit are all together in that whole place of our oneness. And with the intensifying energy on the planet, those of us that know and have reliable ways to get here, there's no more important resource for us, right? So that we can actually take the breath, as it were, with our own oxygen mask, and then assist others who are gasping, right? So this is a Shakti wisdom piece for you around really being divinely aligned, right? And bringing this moment by moment into your experience with whatever change it is that you are dealing with right now. And then the heart. Let's talk about the heart a little bit, right? Practice there is really loving fiercely. And the Shakti wisdom teaching here, there's many, but the one I want to share with you today, will go much more deeply into these in our 6-week program. The one I want to share with you today is the practice of working with the flow of your emotional life, right? So this is one of the greatest resources of energy that we have, particularly as women. And it is our ability to feel things so deeply. And what I'm noticing in my own heart is that when I look at the news and I look at the violence that's happening, when I look at the destruction of this beautiful, beautiful planet, right? And I am so frustrated by the levels of racism that I'm seeing, particularly in my own country, right? It just sometimes feels like the change isn't even happening fast enough. Like we're going backwards, right? With the way that our Black and Brown sisters are being treated, right? I'm actively working on identifying and seeing my own whiteness and my own privilege and how I am a party to that, even in thinking of myself as a non-racist person, right? But there's so much work to do there, right? If you're a Black or Brown sister who's listening to this, right, you're dealing with change plus this, seeming inability for the world to wake up to racism, right? It's a whole nother level of stress that our sisters of color are dealing with right now that I'm only beginning to try to understand. I can't even say I understand it. I'm just committed to trying to understand this and make a difference around that. Right? But when we look at these things, or how about the rolling back of our rights as women also in this country? I was marching for Roe v. Wade when I was just like a little kid. And to think that now, women can't even get access to basic reproductive rights, right? And they're being told that these choices about their own body are not theirs to make, that a bunch of white haired men are making these decisions on behalf of a woman's body is absolutely horrific to me. It doesn't matter to me if we're pro life or pro choice. It's not about that. It's more for me about a woman getting to make her own decision about her own body, right? So these things and many more, whatever they are for you that are arising, when we look at them, there's a lot of emotion that comes up, right? Here I am, like, feeling, enraged or horrified or grief-stricken or just heartbroken, right? About what is happening in the world. And we get more and more impressions of that every day. We can no longer pretend like we don't know what's going on because we have access to so much information now. So the practice of knowing how to metabolize that kind of emotion in our bodies is more important than ever. Right? And what we tend to do is dampen them down or over express them, or they take us out of our experience and we get tsunamied by them, like we're feeling pummeled by them. And so in our Shakti wisdom practices, we really are looking at how can we be with the emotion, right? How can we have a body and a heart that can hold that emotion and particularly let it move through us like a wave, right? Emotion, motion. It's always about motion. This is a place where we really want to ride the change of where we go emotionally as women and see that as life force energy, right? As part of our aliveness. And as part of what ignites us to move into whatever the action is that is within our reach, right? Like, what is it that we are here to do in this moment when it's all said and done, right? And we're on our deathbed. What is it going to take right now from us so that we can say, wow, I did everything that I could. I lived my life fully. I sucked every drop out of it. I can let it go now, right? Instead of being in a place of regret, or I was so paralyzed, or I couldn't do what I needed to do. In part, that comes from us not having better skills and support to be our vibrant, emotional selves, right? To let that heart of ours love fiercely, feel fiercely, and to love ourselves enough to really honor that. And that brings us down more into the body, right? The earth of us, because this is very intimately connected to our sexuality, right? If we are not feeling like we can feel all that needs to be felt in the heart, we will literally armor this part of ourselves. And so when the energy from below us, from our orgasmic energy, right, our life force energy that lives in our yoni, this is the word we use instead of vagina, the sacred source, yoni, sacred source of who we are as women, the fertility and the creativity that lives inside of our wombs, whether we have them or not anymore. For my sisters who've maybe had hysterectomies, energetically, this is the place where we know how to talk about gurus of change. Take a tiny drop of seed with this egg and create a human being. Talk about masters of change. That's who we are as women. And so all of that creative life force energy that lives in our root system, it wants to freely flow, come back down to the earth. Choo! It wants to come down from the heavens and go down to the earth, right? Because we are the center here. And if we're blocked in any one of these energy centers of our body, and particularly our heart, because we don't want to feel, or we're too afraid to feel, or there's stuff that needs to be felt from way back when that we haven't been willing to feel, then we won't be able to be that conduit. We won't be able to feel our pleasure. And embracing pleasure, our sensual pleasure, is a gateway to God. This is one of the core tenets in the ancient tantric teachings, that Shakti is life force, energy, and power, and it is feminine in nature. So the power in the world is feminine in nature. And the capacity for us to expand our ability to know pleasure and hold pleasure brings us closer to God, to Goddess, to the divine. It's a gateway in. And if we think about it, at least in my own cosmology, if God, Goddess is pure joy and pure love and pure light, then what could be more pleasurable than that, right? If you think about the most beautiful experiences that you've had in your life, where you felt closest to the divine, and intimately connected to your own soul, they were beautiful. They were orgasmic. It's not an accident that when we reach the pinnacle of pleasure in our physical bodies through orgasm, we say, "Oh my God, oh my God." Many of us, right? Because it is a remerging back to that pure light of who we are, creative life force, love that brought us here, that was our very origin. So most of us don't have a lot of capacity for that. We've been told and shamed about our sexuality and ways that we feel pleasure in our sensuality because we've been overly dominated by the mind, right? And because the body is so associated with the feminine, it has been demonized, and our sexuality has been demonized. So alert, alert, alert. Anytime something is that demonized, there's power in it. So one of the most effective ways to keep us disempowered, addicted, right, and controllable, so that we buy more crap and we numb ourselves out and we binge watch more stuff and we buy more things for instant delivery the next morning. Okay, I love to do all those things too. They're not bad. But when we get disempowered from what already lives inside of us, right, our Shakti, then we're much more likely to go out and find those, I would say, forms of pleasure, right, that are not inherent in us, right? And very often they're more shadowy forms of pleasure. We're in so much pain that we're just reaching for something that will give us some relief, right? So we reach for pleasure as a way to deal with our pain. Now, we're programmed to do that, and there's also nothing wrong with that. That's part of who we are. What I'm talking about is this more inherent pleasure that is your life force energy, that is your Shakti, that is actually your divine nature. And the more that we start to connect with that, I would say through our sexuality, right? Through beginning to open our capacity to feel that orgasmic energy, not just through self-pleasuring or when we're making love to a lover, if we're doing that, but as a frequency that you're moving through life with. This is one of the greatest gifts of spending 2 decades in the real life laboratory of my own life and as a teacher, now teaching, having taught thousands and thousands of women worldwide. And I believe one of the reasons I got selected to be on Oprah, I'm so grateful for that experience because I have access to this frequency called Shakti. We all do, but I can move through life with that. And it opens doors and it creates opportunities, right? And uh, it allows me to be in a place of greater receptivity to all that's coming. And that's what I want for you, right? Because when we practice receiving pleasure, and it doesn't have to be sexual pleasure, I think that's an important one because it's power packed energy. But I'm also just talking about the light, just beyond the camera. There's this beautiful um, etched glass here. It's so lovely. And the light is hitting it and refracting on that. And it's just like a miracle. It's like being in church. Um, and there's opportunities for us to find pleasure and just allow it in every single moment, even in the moments where we feel completely overwhelmed by change. And so this is the piece in the Awakening Shakti teachings of really beginning to embody your senses. So even right now, let's just take a moment to have you feel. Let's start with your sense of felt, of what you feel. Take a big breath. Don't forget to breathe, but just in this moment, just notice what you feel. It might be, I definitely suggest you give yourself a little touch. Notice what it feels like to feel your hands on your body. On your breasts are guardians of the heart. And many say the seat of our orgasmic potential as women. We'll be talking about that in the 6-week class as well. We spend a lot more time awakening our senses and working with our sexual energy, but our breasts are such a gateway for us into pleasure. So just noticing what you feel with this touch, or what it feels like your butt on the seat if you're sitting, or the temperature of the air around you on your skin. And then bringing your awareness to your sense of taste. Just noticing what you pick up with whatever's on your tongue. I'm going to have a sip of my peppermint tea. Just noticing what flavor or tastes might be lingering in your mouth from the last time that you consumed something. What are you smelling? Bring your awareness there for a moment. What's in the environment? In my environment at home, I always have flowers, incense, essential oils, because I love to wake up that sense of smell. It brings me great joy and pleasure, and it helps me become present. Just noticing what subtle or not so subtle smells you might pick up in your environment. Maybe it's not a very nice smell. There's a bit of a earthy smell from a potted plant over here that I'm picking up that's like a little mossy and wet. What are you hearing? Now bring your awareness to what you hear. Of course, you hearing my voice. What else? Exquisite the silence is too. And lastly, your visual field. Just look around the room. Maybe it's a room you spend tons of time in. But instead of looking just Instead, allow your eyes to receive in a more passive way whatever delight might be there. This window's casting a sunbeam on the wall that's full of rainbows. I just noticed that's what made me smile. Oh, look at that. Right? We're just noticing colors, textures, light, dark, shadows, patterns. And then bringing all those senses together right now, just taking a moment like an orchestra conductor bringing in all the parts into a full symphony. What you feel, what you smell, what you taste, what you hear, what you see. And notice, sister, that if you're actually fully engaged with me in this practice, you're present right now because you cannot be present and you cannot be in touch with your senses and not be present, right? You have to be here in order to notice what that flavor is on your tongue. So, this little practice is about attuning to your body, weaving in that presence as one of your resources, but also beginning to open to pleasure because these senses are the way that pleasure enters into you. Think of it as the goddess herself, Shakti, saying, here, you are alive as a human being. You get to experience these things. No matter what's going on, you have this resource of your own sensuality. And hopefully, the more that you do these practices, you can tap right into your orgasmic energy because it's running through your body. It's not dependent on a lover or, the tantric man of your dreams or the tantric woman of your dreams. It's not dependent on you having a perfect body and a tight little yoga butt. It's not dependent on you being 20. It's available to you as an ecstatic elder. It's yours. It's your Shakti and it's your life force energy. It's the ultimate fountain of youth, right? All right. So these are the three keys: the body, heart, and the soul. I sometimes call these lover, mother, and leader. If you've been around for a while, you're hearing me use these archetypes. Lover being for the body, mother, as we spoke about, being about your heart, and leader being about your spirit or your soul. And the actions to take around really activating this sacred feminine inside of you are to love fiercely, to embrace pleasure, and to be divinely aligned, right? That's really everything that I'm up to, right? And what I have to offer you, and everything that I do supports you to get more and more connected to these aspects of yourself with very reliable ways to do that. So I would love your permission to share a little bit about the sacred feminine activation that I have coming up and share a little bit about that with you. Thank you by all means. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's some really awesome notes here in the chat. I promise to stay and read those and read them out for those of you that can't see the chat. And for right now, what I would like to do is connect you to my page so that you can follow along with me a little bit. So let me give you the link for that. Hold on one sec, you guys. Just doing a little bit of technology here. All right, there's the link for you in the chat. And for those of you that are not on the chat, I'm actually going to share my screen so that you can see where we are and give you an opportunity to just have a quick look here. Let's see if this works, you guys. Hopefully it will. Yeah, there we are. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. It's taken me a while to get comfortable with this technology, but I think I'm here. So what you're seeing right now, hopefully, is the page on my website, which is awakeningshakti.com. And this is the Sacred Feminine Activation page. So it's just sacred-feminine-activation. So you'll see here what we have that I'm offering to you. And this is a 6-week program. And I want to just show you the modules real quick so that you can see what we're up to. So basically what the program includes is we're going to do we have 6 audio recorded sessions. So you get one of those every Monday. This is going to start on the 28th of October. And so here's the cool thing. You get to just listen to those in your time that week. You have a whole week to do that. And it's about an hour to 90-minute class, closer to an hour, I think. So you get that audio, and then you also get an extensive PDF that I call the deepening practices, so that you actually have journaling prompts and exercises and poetry and other things that are included in that help you deepen into the topic for that month. And in addition to that, we're going to have 3 live Zoom coaching sessions. So those are going to happen on November 6th and 19th and December 6th. And those will be an hour and a half long. So we have 90 minutes so that we can all do exactly what we're doing here on a Zoom call, connect. We'll do Q&A. We'll talk about the content in the modules that you've already done. And I'll give you some spot coaching. It's just really your time and our time to connect. So that's what the program includes. The first session we have is called Remembering What's Been Forgotten, right? We really look at the context of this hyper productive world that we've been raised in, right, as good feminists, and how we're always getting so many things done and we're producing and we're running our masculine energy, and the cost of that, and how we can start to relax more into our Shakti, exactly what I've been talking to you about today, so that we can start receiving more, right? And magnetizing to us what's wanted. That's the beauty of this work. It just starts to get so much easier to make things happen, because you're not forcing things and pushing things. You're actually doing. It's not about sitting on your couch necessarily. You're out doing, but you're doing it more connected to this wellspring of your own energy, right? Your own Shakti, your own vitality, and this magnetic energy that starts to draw to you what's wanted, right? So it's really about, we start bringing those authentic feminine superpowers back online and see what happens. So that's our first session. Then the second session, we move into the heart, right? This domain of the heart, we deepen into a lot what I began to share with you today, particularly around working with our breasts and our capacity to love, and how can we have a more empowered relationship to our emotional life. Session 3 is about trusting pleasure and the soft animal of you. Like, how do we really start to shift this attitude we have towards pleasure? Which brings us into the 4th session, which is about becoming a joygasmic lover of life, right? With our hearts open and our senses alive, and we're more connected to our pleasure, we can cultivate a more sacred relationship with our sexual energy as women. So we really start talking about our orgasmic life here. And then in the 5th session, we allow that to blossom into how do we lead our life from that place, right? Sexy, soulful, Shakti leadership. How do we stay connected to that wisdom and our own soul? And then session 6 is really about integrating all of it, living into our wholeness, right? These aspects of lover, mother, and leader, heart and body and soul. What does it look like to really bring that out into the world, right? In practical ways. So it's so exciting. Here's the price. It's $248, which is a phenomenal deal given all that's packed into this 6 weeks. I've actually reduced the price because I just want more women to have access to this, given the level of change that we're in, and given that we have, I believe we're the women who are going to support so many others. And so we really need to know where our resources are. We need to be supported to do that. And then we have all these bonuses. I have a bonus with Michael and I, with the amazing tantric teacher, Diana Richardson, who wrote The Tantric Orgasm for Women, all about awakening the breasts. And then my beloved sister, Liana Silver, who's a Sounds True author and the author of Feminine Genius. We have and had an awesome interview that I'm including in there. All right. So that's the place where you can go get information. And then I want to give you guys a special deal. So I'm going to reduce the price of this program from $248. I've already reduced it to $248. But for the next 4 to 5 days, I think I said 5 days, I'm going to give you an extra $50 off. All right. And you can even share this with other people, but I specifically want to give it to you because you showed up for this masterclass, and you've been here to co-create it with me, including those of you that are picking up on the replay. So this isn't getting advertised widely. If you were here on the masterclass, you're getting this coupon code, and I'm going to pop it into the chat for you right now. But I'm also going to say it to you. It's change in caps 2019. So change all caps 2019. When you sign up for the program, you just click the button and you'll get to the shopping cart page. And if you enter into the coupon code section, change all caps 2019, it'll take another $50 off. So that gives you the whole program for only $198. It just doesn't get any better than that, I don't think. Sorry. I think it's an incredible opportunity. There is a second offer for you that is available. Also, there's more details about this on the order form, but you can also bring a sister, bring a friend, and you can buy one ticket and then get the second ticket for half off. So as long as you register with a friend, that's actually the very, very least expensive way to do the program. I think it takes it down to like $180. And the great benefit of that is then you have a sister buddy. Because here's the thing, ladies, this is the piece. You do know these things, and I bless you, and I do trust that you will figure this out on your own. And it might be your time to walk alone. It might be. And so if that's your truth, then I bless you. Know that we will be here. But if you're feeling like most of us are, that this is absolutely a time to, like the birds show us, right? To be in that flock and fly together so that we can leverage the energy. Here's what I know after doing many, many courses like this over the years, that when we place ourselves into this sacred circle of women who are also here with a commitment to awaken their Shakti and really bring this energy online so that they can go out and do what they want to do in the world, so that they can begin to have a deeper connection with this give and take, this ability to magnetize, because we're so depleted, right? We're so exhausted. Women are suffering from record levels of stress and heart disease and depression, right? And a lot of that, I believe, is because we are out there trying to figure it out on our own, right? Inside that hypermasculine, dominant, patriarchal model that says we just have to keep producing. So when we let that go and we start having conversations like this inside of sacred community with other women who are also like, yeah, I'm ready to do this differently, then we literally leverage and we draft upon each other's energy, right? So even just saying yes and placing yourself in this circle, you will be like kind of bombarded with love and support and energy that you're like, whoa, right? Insights happening and shifts starting to happen more quickly because you're in the group, right? Because you're in the group, not to mention the fact that we're going to have an opportunity to connect and you can ask questions and all of that. So I really do believe this is a time for us to be in support with one another, be in sacred circle with one another, right? And do this work together. So it would be my joy to welcome you into this circle. Like I said, we start in a couple of weeks, and all of those live calls are recorded. Everything's recorded. So you really can do it in your own time frame, and beautiful to bring a sister so you can be accountable and go like, hey, how was that practice for you when we were doing blah blah blah, and she can go, yeah, I wasn't sure about that, but what did it, and you guys can chat about that. Or did you do it? No, but I'm going to. Okay, when? Great, let's do it, and then let's check in tomorrow, right? You can have some accountability, so it's not just like another thing. Here's the thing, don't let this be another thing on your to-do list. This is not what it's about. No, it's a gift to yourself, right? Remember, we need to embrace pleasure. So it's really about dropping into that wellspring of your own Shakti, right? As a way to fortify yourself, dear sister, as a way to really rest, relax, kind of anchor into, root down into this wisdom that already lives inside of you, right? These resources that are already here. It's really about waking up to them and really stepping into those. And there couldn't be a more auspicious moment for us to do that, right? So it's my prayer as I let you go today. I will stay, by the way, and answer any questions that people have if you'd like to stay a little bit longer. But for those of you that need to jump, yes, we are just a few minutes over. Sorry about that. I want to honor your time. And I just want to thank you so much for being the woman that you are. Yeah. And for really, really stepping into um, the level of change that's happening, right? And doing that in a place where you're committed to staying open as a woman of love, right? You're committed to loving fiercely no matter what. That is a big task right now, sister. And I believe that's who you are. Thank you for that. And embracing pleasure. Let us continue to remind ourselves that we're here to have fun, to enjoy, right? To be the beautiful, soft animals that we are, that embrace sensuality and pleasure, that it can be that way, and that is our resource, particularly when times get difficult. And also to be divinely aligned, because that is ultimately who we all are. And we need help remembering to step back and anchor into that kind of guidance. Thank you so much for being with me. So much love to you. All right. So if you need to jump, jump. And I am